Okay, so we're going to call to order tonight, October 2nd, 2025. Take your time. She's just saying, take your time to fill out the comment card. And that was my own voice. And you guys, it's a little much. We're going to begin with a roll call. Commissioner Lind. Here. Commissioner Zachman.
Here. Commissioner
Hargreaves. Here. Commissioner Kazaki. Here. And Commissioner Brummond is here. And then I'd like to invite you all to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance with us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And that takes us into our agenda approval for tonight. So unless there are any changes from staff or the fellow commissioners, we can, I'll entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
We have no changes. I'll second that motion.
Okay, I'll make the motion, and then Commissioner Kazaki seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed? Okay, and next we're going to move on to open forum, which is the opportunity to be heard on an item that is not on the agenda tonight. So if it's not a new business item, but you just wanted to bring something to the attention of the Planning Commission, this would be the opportunity to make those issues known. It's not an opportunity to debate, but it is absolutely an opportunity to be heard. So if there's anyone here tonight who wants to address the commission, you may come to the podium. I don't believe we have any cards related to open forum. Okay, so I'm assuming then that we're going to move into the rest of the evening because folks are here for specific items on the agenda. All right, that takes us into the approval of minutes from September 4th meeting. Is there anyone who wanted to make any notes or comments?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, there's a motion to approve the minutes, and I'll second that motion. Before we vote, the only question that I had or comments was, is there any reason why it would be beneficial to include the information that's actually discussed during the council update in the minutes? That's just a section that I've noticed is blank. I'm not like trying to make more work for anybody. I'm just wondering, is that ever anything that is beneficial for you guys to have reviewed?
Very in favor of that idea.
Okay, so if that's possible, sorry. And I guess like not the calendar stuff, right? I think it would just be like if there is an issue.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion. So all those in favor of approving the minutes from September 4th meeting, say aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed? Okay. And that brings us into our new business for tonight. And so we're going to begin with item 6A, which is High Point Garden Site Plan and Interim Use Permit, City File 25-033. And we will begin with a staff report. No problem.
The first item on our agenda tonight is called the first agenda item tonight is for High Point Gardens. All right, I will yell. It is a site plan approval and interim use permit. The applicants are Nathan and Joshua Adams, and their business is called High Point Gardens. The location is their residence at 21020 County Road 10. It is indoor cannabis cultivation is a permitted use in the rural residential district, but does require site plan approval, and it is only for state licensed businesses. As a part of the request, they are asking that they don't have to put in a parking lot, so essentially to reduce the parking requirements down to 0, and that is allowed through an interim use permit as long as there's documented data to suggest that their business model does not need that parking. So the business will be located within the basement of their existing home on the property. The total footprint of the business area is 695 square feet. There are no exterior changes or expansions being proposed with the application, except for additional landscaping touch on in a moment. The business will be managed by two brothers who live on site. They have no plans for initial employees. They did note in their narrative they could in the future have employees or interns, but there is no retail component that they will disclose vehicles that they will be using to distribute their product off-site to licensed downstream businesses. So there will be no customers coming to the site. They are using their personal vehicles to bring the product elsewhere. And there is no retail component. So the site plan, a few things that were noted is they do not discuss exterior lighting. However, my understanding is the strategic lighting may be necessary for effective security. So a proposed condition of approval is for the applicant to provide lighting specifications and a photometric plan to confirm compliance with the city's lighting standards. Also, based on the business footprint, one additional overstory tree and 3 understory shrubs are required. In working with the applicant, we identified that it makes sense to locate these in the southwest corner to provide some more screening from the house where the business will be located. They have proposed an east-west alignment. One question for the planning commission is, do we prefer a northwest alignment or be okay with that east-west alignment? They are showing 3 trees, but that was based off an incorrect calculation on my end of the initial application intake. Based on the square footage of the business, they would need 3 shrubs and 1 overstory tree. So they do have to update their landscaping plan to try to account for that additional shrub. And there are also some additional clarifications that they will have to provide to the city for the landscaping plan that are handled as conditions of approval. That includes the species of the planting, the size at the time of planting, as well as just use of the city's detail plates on the site plan. And then as far as the way that our zoning ordinance is written as it pertains to cannabis businesses, we do have a performance standards section specific to cannabis businesses. Some of those are more specific to retail operations, but there are a few that apply to the cannabis cultivation. So number 1 is comprehensive security measures. The applicant provided detailed plans for their security, including what they've submitted for their state license. The cultivation area will be monitored and secured with smart technology provided by Wright-Hennepin Co-op. Security cameras will be located on each side of the house to be able to see what's going on the entire premises leading up to the house. And then they also will have interior cameras within and leading up to the cultivation areas within the house. They also have to have adequate ventilation to ensure no odor is detectable from the exterior of the building. The applicant is proposing HEPA-approved carbon filter air purifier that's rated for large spaces. No exterior venting is proposed, and they also will be using a plastic barrier on the walls and ceiling to insulate and act as an odor barrier. They also intend to complete regular perimeter checks to ensure no odor leaks and will respond to any odor complaints from neighbors. And that's part of their business plan, and that is again what was submitted to the state for their state licensing. They also have to have a waste disposal plan. And again, they also have to have this with the state, so what they provided to the city matches with their state application. Cannabis waste will be made unusable and unrecognizable before disposal and tracked in a statewide system. Will be placed within a sealed and labeled container with a designated within a designated access controlled waste area until final disposal. And final disposal will involve composting all trimmings and plant matter, and it will be mixed with organic matter to decompose. The organic matter would be food scraps, yard waste, cardboard, sawdust, used potting soil, things like that to mix it into just general compost. And then they have to do final disposal within 7 to 14 days is the regulatory storage time frame, and they did call that out in the plan as well. To address potential odors from cannabis waste, they again will be putting organic waste within sealed containers until time for decomposition. They will utilize composting methods that minimize odor release, and then the waste will be grinded and mixed with other organic materials. Location, we have a buffer requirement so that cannabis businesses are not located within so many feet of other uses, specified uses. Based on available data, the location is not located within 1,000 feet of a school or 500 feet of a daycare, residential treatment facility, or a public park that has an attraction that is regularly used by minors. So they do comply with our location requirements. We also have a requirement that cannabis cultivation within an accessory structure be set back at least 100 feet. This is not applicable to the current request since the business is located within their principal structure, their residence. Finally, signage must comply with Corcoran City Code and must not depict cannabis leaves, use slang terms for cannabis, or appeal to minors, and they are proposing no signage. They're intended to be as discreet as possible. So one of the bigger issues is the matter of parking. Per our zoning ordinance, we are supposed to use the most similar use that we have called out on our parking table for the formula. That, in this instance, would be manufacturing, processing, or fabrication, which requires 8 spaces plus 1 space for each 2 employees, and with a minimum of 8 spaces, plus 1 per 500 square feet of floor area. So with this in mind, they would be required to have 10 parking spaces. The applicant did provide proof of parking for 9 spaces within the existing driveway. And there are approximately 5 spaces today within the driveway, in addition to their garage parking. These are informal spaces, and I would not call this a parking lot, but this is just to show that they can fit that amount of cars within their existing parking lot, and it could expand, existing driveway, and the driveway could be expanded to have 3 more vehicles at least. Again, I had a misunderstanding of the footprint of the business space when we initially did the intake of the application. They provided proof of parking for 9 spaces. It should be 10. So a condition of approval is to update the site plan for that additional vehicle. They also have to dimension the parking spaces as well. So section 1060.060 subdivision 10 allows for parking space reductions approved as an interim use permit when it can be demonstrated there is a demand which is less than what is required by the parking formula. Based on the documented business model and residency of the applicants, the request is to reduce the formal parking requirement to 0 spaces at this time, with parking accommodated by the existing driveway. Again, there are no initial employees expected, and there are spaces for at least 3 additional vehicles in addition to their 2 personal vehicles that will be associated with the distribution of their product. And there will be no customer traffic on site. So that does suggest that it would kind of be overkill to have a 10-space formal parking lot on the property. Conditions of approval for the interim use permit. And again, the interim use permit is specific to parking. It is not, just to clarify, the cannabis cultivation itself is the site plan approval and it's permitted. The interim use permit is specific to parking. So the conditions of approval would be that there is no parking on County Road 10 or other public streets. All parking must be accommodated on site. If parking demand will exceed 5 cars at any one time, the applicant must submit a site plan amendment for city approval. Construction of a formal parking lot compliant with all parking performance standards will be required at the applicant's expense at that time. And then the IUP is subject to inspection by city staff once every 3 years and or upon receipt of a parking complaint. And the site plan must be updated to provide proof of parking for 10 spaces, as I mentioned. And then the interim use permit has a sunset clause, and staff proposes the following as part of that sunset clause. So this is when the IUP would expire. Property is sold or transferred to someone not associated with the property at the time of this application. The property is no longer homesteaded. Parking demand for the cannabis cultivation business exceeds 5 parking spaces at any one time, including their personal vehicles disclosed for distribution. The cannabis cultivation business ceases or it expands and the city determines the parking demand will increase. Or the cannabis cultivation business fails to meet city and state requirements. Staff does recommend that the Planning Commission open the public hearing and take any testimony. And we do recommend approval of the draft resolution approving the site plan and IUP. If the Planning Commission finds the standards for the IUP are not satisfied, the site plan should still be recommended for approval with the condition that the site plan be amended to reflect a 10-space parking lot that meets all city standards. That would also then trigger a requirement for a grading plan and a site improvement performance agreement and a financial security to ensure that the parking lot is constructed. And that is what I have to do.
Thank you so much. What we're going to do now is move into our public hearing portion related to this specific business item. So comments are limited to in-person participants only. And if you filled out the card at the beginning, we're going to call you to the podium first. And then it is an opportunity to make your feelings on the subject known, but it won't be an opportunity to get questions answered. So feel free to answer your questions. We will make note of them. And at the end of the public hearing, then we will have staff address, or the applicant has an opportunity to speak as well. So just want to make sure that you know that you're welcome to ask the questions. We just won't be able to address them immediately. And then we will limit it to approximately 5 minutes, and that's just to keep our meeting going tonight. So with that being said, do we have any cards related to this new business item? No? Okay. So then what we'll do now, though, is allow anyone who's here, because we don't want to miss anybody who's here, the opportunity. If you want to bring your cards up, that's totally fine. It helps them with the public record for name and address. But if there's anyone here who didn't get the card submitted but would like the opportunity to speak, we just invite you up to the podium, and you just state your name and address for the record, and then feel free to share what you will.
So I think we just got two cards. So Craig, I'm so sorry, I'm going to butcher this.
Go ahead and try.
Wojciechowski.
It's not very good.
You can correct us at the mic. I would love to hear the correct pronunciation.
Name and address?
Yes,
Is that what
please.
you-
Thank you
I'm
so
Greg
much.
Wojciechowski. I live at 21040 County Road 10. I'm right next door. I didn't really know anything about this other than the letter we got. If I heard correctly, all this growing is going to be done in the house, in the basement?
Correct.
All right. I'll be honest, I'm not tickled about it. I realize it's legal. I was kind of under the impression it was going to be outside, grown outside. I have a long driveway right next to their property, and I don't know anything about pot. I had a little fear that some people would be driving up my driveway, and there's a small wooded area between my place and their place, and driving up my driveway, sneaking in there, grabbing some of their pot. I don't know anything about pot. I was talking to a friend, and they said, well, it's a really narrow window as to when it's ready, blah, blah, blah. So that doesn't seem to be a concern right now. I'll just say I'm not tickled about it, but I realize it is legal. I'm just kind of voicing my opinion. I am a little puzzled when they say that there's maybe going to be one employee, in the future. I'm really kind of puzzled as to the parking lot issue. It seems to be a big issue here. From what little bit I've heard, I kind of don't understand that. I guess that's about all I had to say on it. I'm not tickled about it. I happen to know the father, Kurt, and get along great with him. I've never really met his boys, but yeah, I guess that's all I had to say.
Thank you, Greg.
I apologize again. Jody Buccino?
Hi there, I'm Jody Buccino. 21060 County Road 10. Got it from you guys. And I don't love public speaking, so I'll make this quick. I didn't know really anything about it also, like Greg said, other than the letter that we got in the mail. So I came to learn more, but don't love the idea for several reasons. One of the things that kind of caught my eye was a phase 1. So phase 1 I understand phase one, I think, but that doesn't tell us what the rest of the phases are gonna look like. Another thing is mention the security measures. I don't understand the risk around it, so knowing that that you guys need to put in trees and stuff, I don't understand why. I don't know why you would need to do that, because what are the risks? I would love to know that. Are there risks associated with it if you're not able to go within 1,000 yards or whatever from a school? My kids are home, we homeschool, so that is a concern for me also, like who's coming in and out of my area. I moved to Corcoran to have a safe place for my children, and I want to make sure that's continues to be a safe place. So I'm with Greg on why is parking needed if there's no employees, and who is monitoring this? Is it being monitored? I don't know. Again, a lot of unknowns, and I'm, with waste management, with what it's going to do with runoff, all of those things. So I'm not excited about it. So that's it.
Thank you, Jody. Is there anyone else who, those are the two cards that we had, but is there anyone else who wants to make a public comment on this item?
Well, I can make a comment, I'm nothing prepared.
It's okay, if you could just come.
Questions and comments?
It's okay, you can ask your questions, we just won't be able to ask them, but if you could please come up to the mic and state your name and address for the record. It just helps with note taking, and then we also have viewers at home or online.
Okay. I'm Ani Bergstrom. I live on County Road 10, 21250. So I came tonight to learn. I just sort of heard through the grapevine of a business was potentially starting. So I'm happy to be having the discussion about what the business is not, things like that. I think, like I said, I do have a lot of questions, so I would love to get into that tonight if it's possible. But, one thing that I recently was participating in this year was a different interim use permit hearing and case. And it was one in which was approved. But as a resident of County Road 10, I want to understand maybe more from the commission, the planning committee as well. What are the intentions about interim use and how it lives? I know this one is a sunset program, which is a little different than the other one, but I think a lot of us have moved to Corcoran to be in a rural residential area, and this is now 2 in 3 months that are potentially being granted interim use permits for small businesses. I think this is an interesting precedent that could be set, not only with the previous, but also a second one now. And as I think back of other cases in the last 3 years even, there are other small residential home businesses that have been proposed that have been denied by the city of Corcoran. So I want to challenge this team here to understand and be very clear about what is acceptable and why, and what is approvable and why not, because it feels very inconsistent to me. I just had a couple other notes here. Others were questions. So while I have the mic, can I ask them or no?
You're welcome to ask the questions, we just cannot
Okay.
answer them until we
Okay.
have moved from the
Okay.
public comment.
So, my question would be, how far off County Road 10 is the house/business? That has everything to do to me with the traffic and parking situation. I'd like to understand that. Not that I'm trying to get into the details of the business. I work for corporate America, and so I just have business questions. But, how many plants are we really talking about above and beyond the allowable residential quantity? As well as can the party disclose a little bit more about their distribution model? I mean, like how much traffic are we talking? Are you dropping off to your, customers, or are they picking up? I think I would feel more comfortable understanding a little bit more about the in and out of what's going on and frequency. So I think that's what I have for now.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like the opportunity? So you are the applicant, so you're actually given a separate amount of time to address and answer some of the questions that come from the public, and you don't have to get down, anyway, we'll talk about that when it's your turn to come up. Yeah, if you could just state your name and address for the record, that would be great.
Sue Dublin, 21,000 County Road 10. And I live directly beside and behind the questionable property here. I've lived in Corcoran 50 years. We moved out here that long ago, exactly, almost to the day. It was the 1st of October. Really, Corcoran, keep Corcoran rural was the statement, was the byline back then. And it was really beautiful then. You needed 40 acres to build a home. And of course, that's been shrinking. Not much we can do about that. But we really, my family and I, we do not want the character of Corcoran to be permanently changed. And it would be with such a business we're talking about here tonight. Pot is a mind-altering drug. It has to do with the ruination of families, individuals, property values. They always plummet in the area where something like this goes on. So mostly I want to talk about the character of the city here and the safety. I live on a long, narrow road back into the woods. And if such a business were to get going, I don't think I'd ever feel safe. The purpose of government is to keep its people safe. And I think the people in the area close by, like I am, and some of the rest of you here, we would be at risk, I think, living this close to something like this. It's well known. We talked about the risks here tonight and all the safety measures. It's just incredible what you have to do around it in order to keep criminals away. And criminals don't always get to the right house even. They are known to harass and do whatever they want to the house next door if they get to the wrong house. They don't always know where they're going. They know the area, but they don't always get to the place they want to go. And I don't think I would ever feel safe again in my beautiful Corcoran if this were to come. We don't need to change the nature of Corcoran. There's no need for it. Another commercial business, Corcoran is supposed to be rural. It's been that way for decades. It's never been any different. It's been a beautiful farm country. And I don't know why we're even considering putting businesses out along beautiful County Road 10, let alone a business like this. I just don't think it does anybody any good to have a business like this established out near Corcoran, near my place, out on County Road 10. So I'm against it.
Thank you, Sue. Okay, last call. Is there anyone who is speaking on this agenda item or would like to make public comment? Okay, so at this time, I will make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed? Okay, that's just to closing the hearing. So what we're gonna do next is we're gonna allow the applicant, or applicants to come up to the podium, and we're gonna limit you guys to about 5 minutes as well. What my when we move into the commission discussion and recommendation time, we may have additional questions for you and would invite you to come up to the mic at that time. But during this 5 minutes, feel free to address questions, but also that can be done. You don't have to do that in this format. Okay. And if you could state, they don't have to state their name and address.
Okay.
You don't have to, you can state your name. It'd be nice to know
Yeah.
which brother you are.
Yes, hi, I'm Nathan Adams. First of all, I'd like to apologize to our neighbors. We've been so wrapped up with getting this business going and that we didn't even really come and talk to you. And for that, we apologize. You all made very valid points. I respect all of them. First of all, I'd like to address the parking. There will be no parking lot. There'll be no customers coming in and out of our residence. That will be just for us to transport when our yield would be ready. And that is only going to be twice a year. So it'll be very discreet. It's in our business plan to be very discreet. We plan to have more shrubbery to block anything. We have very tight security to monitor everything. Everything will be lock and key. No one will get in besides authorized access, which would be me and my brother Josh. So traffic, will be no signage. It's really just a garden. That's truly what it is. I'd also like to address, like, this is a medicine. This does help people. It's been proved to help people with depression and with PTSD, and the state recognizes that, and that's the way we view it. We as well don't want any crime. We don't want any signage. We want to live in plain sight and help people. And that's what our mission is to help people. So with that, I'll kind of give up my time. Also, if you guys have any questions, we're more than happy to answer anything and work with you guys to kind of get this done and kind of fulfill a dream of ours. So again, I apologize for not coming to you earlier, but we are more than happy to, do what we need to do to make sure everyone's happy. So thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, do you want me to try to answer any of the other questions?
I think if you want to address in particular the reason for the interim use permit, like give a quick explanation on what that is, I think that would be helpful, and then any of the other.
Yeah, so an interim use permit is a permit that's temporary in nature. So it is a way to grant particular uses, but also, again, have that sunset clause. So it is different than a conditional use permit, which I think is what one of the speakers was speaking about tonight, in that it does have a sunset clause, and it does have an inspection requirement too, once every 3 years is what we typically do for interim use permits, which is a bit different than conditional use permits, which run with the land in perpetuity. So that's the main difference. We do have several different interim use permits that we allow in the rural residential, including event centers, agribusinesses, and home occupation. So we have in recent years have recognized not only do we have agricultural businesses operating in our rural residential area, we want to allow residents that have land in a business idea that maybe they're not ready to go into a commercial industrial area, but it has a limited impact on the surrounding area, that it might make sense to allow for that economic development in the rural residential area. So we have a few different businesses that we allow in that area, and then indoor cultivation is now one of them as well, and that is a permitted use by right. So the interim use permit tonight is not for the cannabis business. It's specifically to allow them to operate without a parking lot. So the idea being that a formal parking lot would be disruptive to the character and is unnecessary for their business model. Now, if they had customers coming to the site, if they were open to the public, which they can't be for what they're proposing, but for an event center or something of the like, they would have people coming to the site. we do need a parking lot to be able, because of the traffic that would be at site and need to be accommodated for. This is different in that it's two brothers that would be operating in a location that they already live at. Their vehicles are already there. There really is no need for 10 more spaces and a formal parking lot with curb and pavement. So it seems more disruptive to the character to require that parking lot. The IUP allows us to waive that, but it also allows us to revoke it should parking become an issue later on down the road. So that really is the high level there. So I'm sorry that didn't come across well enough in the initial presentation. I was trying to talk quickly. And the other couple questions that I can answer right off the bat, they talked a bit about their distribution model. Everything that they've submitted to the state and to the city has said that they have no intention of any customers coming to the site. That it is simply that they would need the parking amount for the two brothers, potentially an employee in the future. We have a couple parameters that we set up to allow for maybe an employee or two, but if it were to be something where all of a sudden they do have 10 employees, we have to reevaluate that. But the distribution model, they would have two personal vehicles that they would disclose to the state as well as the city that they would use to bring their product to their downstream customers that are licensed with the state as well. And that would, again, they said twice a year that would happen. So the traffic to the site would be minimal because they're already coming to and from the site as people who are at the property. How far off of County Road 10? From what I can tell, it's roughly about 280 feet from County Road 10, the house location. There are no runoff concerns. Engineering did take a look at this, and there are no runoff impacts. And there is no changes that they're making to the physical site. Any changes would be specific to the interior, a couple of landscaping requirements, and that's just because that's what was required by code. It wasn't a security measure, although it certainly can act as that as well. But yeah, because they're not proposing any parking, there is no runoff concern at this time. Who is monitoring would be Wright Hennepin for security, and then the city and the state would also be doing inspections as part of the licensing requirements and as part of the IUP for the parking. Why is parking needed if there's no employees? Again, the request tonight, the IUP, is so that they do not have to put in parking because there are no employees at this time. And the security measures are simply a requirement by state. We also have some city requirements as well, but that is, I think it's to basically get ahead of any risks around it. The intent is not necessarily that we're saying that it's so dangerous it requires that, but we are saying this is new. We want to make sure that we're setting it up for success, and so they have some security measures as part of the licensing for this type of crop. And as far as the future phases, so at this time, phase 1 is the only thing that is being approved with the site plan. They did kind of give us an idea of what phase 2 looks like in terms of potential expansion to an accessory structure building. I did put in the staff report that what they're proposing isn't going to work with our, at this point, that phase 2 isn't going to work with some of our requirements. So we will have to look at that whenever they are ready to proceed. They'll have to make some changes to be in compliance with our zoning ordinance, and so they're aware of that. That was simply just to have it earmarked, to be transparent with the city and the community with their plans. They are allowed, my understanding, under their licensing, they're allowed 5,000 square feet of gross space, and I might not be saying that clear, but that's my understanding. But that also includes anything that's stacked. So if they stack, that also counts. So in terms of like if they have like a, yes, it's cubic. So it could be that it's it's not that a 5,000 square foot building would be built. It could be a smaller building that has stacking as well. I'm not aware of any small residential home businesses that have been formally denied. There have been like some back and forth. There was one IUP where they were proposing it as a home business, and then it became aware that he wasn't living at the property, and so the application was pulled, and they decided not to proceed with a place of worship CUP, which would have been the other route for them. But I'm not aware of any small residential home businesses that have been formally denied. in my short tenure here, to be clear, Kendra might know some. But again, there has been, I would say in the last few years, there has been several discussions on how to allow for economic development and for people to be able to harness their land for their income. So I think that might be why there may be a slight change in some of the philosophy you're seeing, as we're trying to make sure that people have freedom to prosper, while still trying to keep it in the rural residential character as well. I think that's everything, but feel free to let me know if there's anything you want me to touch on.
I think you covered it. Thank you, Natalie. At this point in time, we're going to open up for commission discussion and questions. But I just want to clarify, when she's saying this is something new, is that in 2023, the Minnesota State Legislature passed this through as a part of their omnibus bill. It was actually May 30th. And then the legalization of cannabis came into effect August 1st of 2023. But it was a surprise to cities because cities were not prepared. And so for a year, most cities put a moratorium on issues surrounding cannabis, and that was because they had no language that regulated it or put standards around it. And so that moratorium expired at the end of 2024 for Corcoran. I don't know the exact date, I apologize. And so this is the first application we've had for cultivation, I think for anything related to cannabis, because we have had no applications for even retail spaces. So with that being said, this was pushed down from not just the city, like this is not the city of Corcoran initiated this type of exploration into code language. So I just wanted to clarify that for folks that are here that maybe just don't have the history of where we're at with this issue. And at that point in time, I'd love to see if there's a commissioner who wants to start with their questions or discussions.
Could we also clarify for the audience how many licenses we're allowing as a city?
Well, that actually gets into some of my concern. But my concern tonight is not particularly for the applicant. My concern is because I think that this was pushed through with a nearsightedness. So all that to say, there is a limit to 2 licensed retail spaces. It gets more specific, like the distance.
Yeah, for retail, we had authority to limit.
Yes.
And I believe it actually is just 1, I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure we actually went down to 1. And then 1 license for less potent, like edible and cannabinoids, but 1 full retail. So that, I'll double check, but I think we limited to the fullest extent that we could.
However,
yeah, the city attorney did not advise against limiting anything other components because it's clear that we have statutory authority to limit. They put that in the statute. They did not say that we could limit anything else. And the way that it was written, we were not able to put higher standards on than what they basically are preempting cities from over-regulating it. So they give us some ability, but cultivation and other aspects, we don't believe that we have the ability to limit those at this time.
and so I'll say that my concern related to that is in the state of Massachusetts, which actually was one of the earliest states to adopt legalization of cannabis, 10% of their electrical consumption comes from indoor growing of cannabis as a state. And Denver alone, just the city, is 4% of their total electricity comes from indoor cultivation. And that's because this plant is not meant to grow naturally outside. So predominantly like 89% is indoor cultivation. I think Washington State, because of their temperate climate, this comes from the Vermont, University of Vermont Law School is where the research comes from. But Washington has a more temperate climate, so they happen to have a larger outdoor cultivation than most of the standard states that legalize it. So I am also, I share the same power grid, right? And so my concern is not necessarily specific to this application and this night, but I'm concerned that as a state, this is something that we didn't consider or talk about how we were going to manage, especially with the rising costs of electricity and sort of a lot of questions around how we're going to continue to maintain a stable power grid for our residents as a state, especially if we're considering green energy, which hasn't been proven to provide enough energy. So that is my concern. Again, I'm just mostly saying it because if you're somebody who shares a concern, I know there's nothing that anyone in this room can do regarding that. So I understand that it's sort of just paper at this point in time. I want to just check with Lindsay, Commissioner Linds, to see if she wanted to, because I just ramrodded that in there. I apologize.
No,
But-
I wanted to just make sure.
So all of that to say, we cannot, or at this point in time, don't feel like there is an opportunity to regulate the number of cultivations.
Yep, I just wanted everyone to be on the same page with that. Okay.
Okay.
Did you want to say something?
Yep.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Natalie, correct me if I'm wrong, also retail sales would only be done in industrial?
No,
Where did we settle on that?
Commercial.
Commercial
We
only.
do allow for indoor cultivation in industrial as well, but retail
Okay.
only in commercial. And we separated that out. So technically, a micro-business license could allow for some retail, but we separated it by zoning, and we did have authority to do that in the statute.
Yeah, and Madam Chair, you spoke very well. It was extremely difficult for council and the mayor to accept the responsibility of doing this. I still have a problem myself because it's still a federal crime. So just some of the things that we're dealing with, I know I shared that back when you guys first came to us a couple years ago. So it's just, everybody, it is some crazy territory. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you, Councilman. Does anyone want to take the lead? I can continue, or we can, I'd love to let you guys go first. I'll jump in. Yeah.
I noticed on the lighting, there wasn't much information. Is that forthcoming?
Yes, that was handled as a condition of approval. So I did ask for specifications on the lighting proposed, so to make sure that the cameras are effective, and then a photometric plan so that it's at the property line, the glare is very minimal.
So what would the lighting level, what would be the acceptable lighting level at the property line?
So per our current ordinance, it'd be one candle at the property line.
1 foot candle.
Yeah, 1 foot candle, and, but I think, again, I know that their intention is to be discreet, so I don't know that we would necessarily need the lighting to be that significant, that it would be that much at the property line. It just needs to be enough that the cameras can pick up on movement.
Understood.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any, I mean, I have some questions, so just, okay. No one's jumping, so I'm gonna ask. Okay, so in Minnesota, because we have freezing temperatures in the winter, I am curious how large your compost pile will be so that you can still maintain an active compost in those cold temperatures. Because I know what the approximation is supposed to be for size, and I just wanna make sure that you guys are aware, because it's difficult to maintain that heat that's necessary in order to compost. And with the 7 to 10 day storage disposal, it's entirely possible that if it's not an actively composting pile, then you have material just sitting there for a longer period of time. Do you know? Sorry. If you, yeah. Yes, well, I mean, we know, but go ahead.
So, yeah, I'm not exactly sure as the size of the pile. If needed, we are able to take that pile indoors if it's necessary and compost indoors. We have detailed in our plan that the grow room and dry room, when they're not occupied, can be transitioned into other types of rooms. So if necessary, we can bring that inside to maintain that continual composting going year-round.
And I'm not familiar with the application process that the state requires, but I'm assuming it's rigorous. Is that something that they are asking you to detail, or no? They're just, as long as you say verbally or in the contract that you're disposing of it,
Correct.
that is satisfactory for them?
Correct. They don't have any set, like, size requirements or anything like that. It is still very vague. As you said, this was approved about 2 years ago. Minnesota has been very slow walking every little detail, every little aspect of this business. We're trying to stay as forefront to it and as transparent as we can with you guys, so that we're all on the same page and have it all kind of same information that we're going off of.
Right, and that's just what I want to highlight, so. But just for the record, approximately 5 cubic feet is what's needed for the size of a compost pile in order to maintain an active compost outdoors in a Minnesota winter. So it's definitely possible, but like, that's a large compost pile. So,
Yes.
but thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. And then, as far as plantings, east-west alignment, I am fine with. I think if you have, for those who are neighbors as well, we all know it is tucked back there. So I appreciate the discretion because drawing attention. There are some cultivation farms in other parts of Minnesota that have no desire to be discreet at all in terms of what product they have. And so for security overall, I appreciate that there's going to be some discretion. I do just also want to highlight the fact that it does feel incompatible that we have a 500-foot perimeter. That was the lowest or the farthest we could go within state regulations from a daycare and then public parks attended by minors, but there's no consideration for minors who may live in this area. And I feel like that is also something that potentially highlights negligence in forethought. But at this point in time, because what we are being asked to do is to address the parking concerns, and I do appreciate how forthcoming you are, so this is not like, I do appreciate that. I guess my only last concern would be 2 things, is, and I believe, well actually sorry, I have 3. It indicates that the property is no longer homesteaded. If that becomes a condition, if the property is no longer homesteaded, then that would terminate the IUP. So I guess my question is, in the ag area, there are lots of types of ways that your property can be classified. Like there's the agricultural preserve, there's the green acres. Like, is this something that is applicable for anything other than, hey, you're a rural residential home who's also just happening to operate a business?
So I don't believe they meet the minimum size requirements for either of those programs. And I don't think that necessarily it has a homesteaded status, that's just a different tax
Implication.
class. But it's a homesteaded status means that there is a resident and that the property owner is living, or a family member, a qualifying family member of the property owner living outside.
Okay, and then I asked earlier, like, if there for some reason was a termination of the cannabis license, we're not sure at this point in time. I asked earlier how the city would be notified of that, and that was something that there also isn't a process in place for how that works. And so at this point in time, I don't know if you wanted to address.
Yeah, so at this point, the city would just plan to do an annual check with the Office of Cannabis Management on any cannabis business licenses that we are aware of and clarify the status of them on an annual basis, or if we receive a complaint to suggest, or information to suggest that someone's operating without a license, and that would be another trigger as to when we would have that conversation. It's not that we wouldn't receive notice, it's just that there isn't anything in statute that says we must receive notice, and we don't know for sure how that would work. That's not something me or the city attorney could find from yesterday.
Okay. And then I guess one vague question. I mean, it's a big picture question. So oftentimes we will have things where code changes, or and then businesses that were approved at the time when the code was such that it was approved, they become grandfathered in. I'm wondering or questioning about the same, and because this is new, right? And as things change, if regulation or ordinances around this were to be modified in the future, is this a business that's grandfathered in under this current condition?
As long as they retain their state licensing status, and it remains legal on the state level, then they would, if we changed our ordinances to whatever extent, they would potentially be grandfathered in. It really depends on what we're talking about in the changing ordinances. But they might be limited as a non-conforming use in some way, so it might limit expansion ability if that were to happen. But if it were to all of a sudden the state just completely undoes everything that they've done, well, it wouldn't be state licensed anymore, so it would not. Yeah, that would be a completely different situation. And I'm not. We're just asking about, because I know you're talking about IUP as well.
No, just like what were to happen, because it is new, right? And because there's sort of like you were saying, just trying to stay ahead of it, anticipate what's coming, but if all of a sudden something else were to change, I just wanted to know what.
It's possible that the entity learns how to regulate this, that they might add additional licensing requirements, and because I'm sure licenses typically have to get renewed, I'm sure that they would be subject to making changes, or there might be like an ability to do it over time. But it's kind of speculation.
Sure.
That's the best I can offer you at this time.
Okay, thank you so much, appreciate it. All right, folks, what questions or items of discussion do you want to bring to the table?
I guess as a whole, I think the discretion is appreciated. I think they're going about this in a way that shouldn't be too disruptive to the neighborhood, being inside the house and all. I doubt, if you guys didn't know about it, you probably wouldn't even know it was there. There won't be any clients coming in and out of the home. They'll deliver their product a couple times a year. They're not having signage. I assume the odor and waste plan submitted to the state conform to state guidelines, so you're not going to notice any smell. The composting is the thing to bring up, and I think your lot's big enough that you could probably have a 5 cubic foot compost outside too, and it really wouldn't bother any of the neighbors either. In the winter, you're not going to smell it because it's winter, and the fact that you do have an option inside too is also good. I don't believe the parking is an issue at all, even if you guys brought on 3 employees. I don't think that amount of parking would bother anybody. I know in some neighborhoods you'll have extended family living and you'll have quite a few vehicles parked there, and with the size lots that we have, you really don't even notice it. This lot is very treed, it's private. I guess if nobody else has any questions,
I
Oh,
do.
Commissioner Zachman would like to go, okay, but then we'll come back.
Okay.
So my question is specific to the parking and specific to the resolution. Just want to make sure that I'm understanding what's outlined here. In the draft resolution, number 5.1, section 1, proof of parking must show a total of 10 spaces and all parking spaces must be dimensioned. But aren't we kind of putting forward that that's not a requirement?
I apologize, I should have clarified, as part of the IUP, in order for it to be granted, they still have to show that they could meet the minimum required parking.
Perfect.
And that's, so if it were to be revoked, it's not a situation where the business couldn't necessarily move forward, it's just that they have, if it's revoked because they can't meet parking with what they have, they put in the parking that they need.
So if they come forward with the plan that outlines another car on what was shown up on the screen that meets that requirement, it's not us. Yeah, okay, great.
Were you finished?
Yep.
Okay. I want to also comment that I think this was a thoughtful application. Natalie, you've killed it tonight answering all the questions. I would agree with your point, Chair Brummond, about if perhaps it could be put on the roadmap to be talked about of a condition or I don't know what the word would be, but around the distance to a minor, a residential minor, and if that's something that we should think about for the use moving forward. But I would agree that this is probably best case scenario for this business case in regards to how discreet and thoughtful and non-disruptive you'd like to be. I know everyone has a different opinion about this business and about this product and about this going on in society. But, as Council Camp talked about, it is legal in the state of Minnesota, and the city needs to do its job to responsibly manage it. And we appreciate that you're working with the city on this application. I would agree with no parking, and I also am good with the proposed landscaping.
And I have one last question for the applicant. I apologize. I skipped it in my notes. Have you, Wright Hennepin is doing your security. They are also your power supplier. Are they aware of the increase? Okay, so you've had some discussion around the fact that now you'll be retail,
Right.
because that is a different,
Yeah, oh, I'm so sorry, go ahead, finish your thought.
no, that's treated differently than regular residential power. There's a different, okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, they had submitted, there's the full security plan, including the quotes that they got from Ray Henson was part of their submittal. So it's very clear that they've had very transparent conversations, Howard, because I was outlined in the quote. But for whatever reason, it's a locked document, so I wasn't able to put it in the PDF. So I think Ray Henson just doesn't want, I don't know, but I don't think it was anything the applicant did, it was just a locked document. I think the way Ray Henson provides those quotes, they're not something you can just slip into another PDF. So that's why it wasn't a part of it, but it is available upon request if anyone wanted to look at it. It just has to be handled at the city.
I guess I do have one more question as well for the applicant. Are you confident about the ability to put your product in your personal vehicles? Like no big trucks needed to come in or out?
Yeah, so.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, so in our plan, the grow area would hold about 33 plants, between 2 vehicles. You know, granted, a pound a plant, you know, that's about
Okay.
15 pounds. And
Okay.
I have a Jeep Grand Cherokee, so like, that can
Okay.
fit a lot. We are in the process of like getting insurance and all that for the product, so, it'll be protected that way as well.
Thank you.
I guess if nobody else has any other comments, I'd like to make a motion to approve the site plan and introduce permit with no different stipulations.
I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed?
Opposed?
And just to make note that this is the way that the commission voted for a recommendation that then goes to the council. So this will have one more step and one more opportunity to be discussed. And so you can keep, I don't believe notices are they sent out?
No, not, only
Yep.
the public hearing, so October 23rd would be the anticipated meeting date.
So if you wanted to stay on top of this issue, October 23rd is when it's anticipated to be discussed at council. All right, and so then we're gonna go on to our next item of business, which is 6B, Rush Creek Golf Course Conditional Use Permit and Site Plan Amendment. And I believe we are beginning with the staff report for this item as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, item 6B tonight is the Rush Creek Golf Club Site Plan and Conditional Use Permit Amendment. This is a request from the club to allow for the expansion of the existing maintenance building on their, hold on for a second.
Hey guys, if you could just keep,
I'll get it, I'll get it.
appreciate it.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry, I should have made mention on that, yeah.
It's easier to jump into, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay, go for it.
So, yeah, this is a request from the golf club to allow approval of a site plan and conditional use permit amendment, which will allow for a 2,508 square foot addition to the existing maintenance building on the site. This expansion would allow for additional storage space for maintenance equipment, as well as some additional space for staff on the course. The site itself is, the address is 7990 Maple Hill Road. It's a 106.5 acre parcel, currently zoned public institutional, and is surrounded with properties that are zoned urban reserve, single-family residential, 2 manufactured home park, and then there's a little bit that borders up against the corner of the downtown mixed-use district. The site itself is guided public/semi-public use, and the adjacent uses to the west, or sorry, to the east is the other half of the golf course, and then surrounding the rest of the site is a mix of residential uses right now. There is a medium quality wetland that covers a good portion of the site. However, the proposed addition does not impact that wetland community. You can kind of see the wetlands over the aerial image there, and the red dot is the area of the addition specifically. So the items being considered tonight is a site plan and conditional use permit amendment to allow that 2,508 square foot expansion to the south side of the existing structure which would provide the additional storage space and staff meeting/break spaces. If this proposal complies with the zoning ordinance, the city is required to approve the site plan and conditional use permit amendment. So going into the analysis, this property is required to adhere to the minimum setback requirements of the public institutional district, which are a minimum setback of 50 feet from the front, side, and rear property line. The proposed addition would result in setbacks of 512 feet from the front property line, 79 feet from the west property line, and about 2,500 feet from the east property line, and then 630 feet from the rear property line. So it more than meets these setback requirements. The building size, again, is that 2,508 square foot expansion to the south side. The public institutional district allows for maximum impervious surface coverage of 70%. Based on staff's analysis of the 106-acre parcel, it appears that the impervious surface coverage is less than 1%, and it doesn't appear to be an issue with this addition to the building. The height of the peak of the expansion would be 21.16 feet, which would be consistent with the height of the current structure and would comply with the 45-foot height limit of the public institutional district. The plans show the expansion area to be constructed with asphalt shingles, metal panel siding, metal fascia, metal soffit, and metal trim. This would be consistent with the existing materials of the site or of the building, and I got an image of the existing building on the screen now for reference. The non-residential district standards does allow for these metal materials provided they are fabricated and finished with a durable, non-faded surface, and the fasteners are of a corrosion-resistant design. Since the distribution of this packet, the applicant has provided a copy of the metal surface warranty confirming compliance with this standard. So that is something that has been addressed since this has been distributed to you all. The proposed expansion area overlaps with the existing employee parking area. Within the building plan set, there is a drawing of the parking after the addition, and it shows the parking to be shifted to the east to align with the eastern face of the building. There is a note on this drawing that this was prepared by the architect and is for preliminary planning only, and so it's not currently displayed on the site plan itself. So a condition of approval would be that the site plan be updated to show these parking stalls, and based on historical imagery, staff estimates that the parking needs would be about 20 stalls, so that site plan amendment requirement would be amending it to show 20 parking stalls, whereas this drawing is showing 18 parking stalls. Additionally, within the parking and loading performance standards within the zoning ordinance, there is a provision that states when an existing business expands the structure by 10% or more, or a change in use creates the need for additional parking spaces, the entire parking lot parking area shall be upgraded to meet the provisions contained within this subdivision. So a 2,508 square foot addition to an existing 5,622 square foot building would represent a 44.6% expansion, which would trigger the need to upgrade the parking lot to meet the standards of this subdivision. So these standards are that off-street parking areas for non-residential uses must include a perimeter of poured, cast-in-place concrete curb around the entire parking lot and a surface of asphalt, concrete, and other surface as approved by the engineer. This drawing that was provided by the architect indicates that the asphalt would be used to replace the existing surface between the buildings, but this will again need to be identified on the site plan as well. And the drawing also notes that this parking area that's south of the buildings appears to be constructed of an existing gravel surface. It contains about 10 parking stalls. This area too would need to be upgraded to the above-mentioned materials and screened from nearby residential structures. The parking load or the landscaping standards for parking areas of more than 4 parking stalls requires screening of at least 3 feet from adjacent residential structures. So to summarize, in order to comply with the standard, staff recommends a condition of approval requiring a revision to the site plan confirming that this parking lot will be upgraded to meet those design standards. And then the conditional use permit amendment, the expansion of the existing structure to allow operations related to the golf course requires approval of the conditional use permit amendment and comply with the standards outlined in section 1070.020. I have that full list of standards outlined in the staff report, and I didn't include it in the slides, but happy to answer some questions if those come up. But to summarize, staff finds that these standards have been satisfied with the proposed application. And at this point, staff recommends that the commission open the public hearing and take testimony, and then staff recommends approval of the draft resolution approving the site plan and conditional use permit amendment for the Rush Creek Golf Course.
Thank you, Joyce. At this point in time, do we have any comment cards related to this agenda item?
Madam Chair, we do not.
Okay. All right, I will just open it up in case there's someone here real quickly who wanted to speak or address this business item. Otherwise, if not. Okay, awesome. If you could come to the podium and just state your name and address for the record. Oh, yeah, you're the applicant. So let me close the public. No, it's okay. You can stay at the podium. Let us close the public hearing, and then that way you don't have to walk back and forth. So at this point in time, there is no one here who would like to address this business item, so I will make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed? Okay, all right, sir, go ahead, and as the applicant, if you could address, that'd be great.
My name is Greg Radden. I'm the architect working with the owner's representative here for the Rush Creek Golf maintenance facility improvement. In addition, I just want to say if there's any comments, or what I'd like to do is just sit down with the city. I read through the three different issues regarding the parking and the drainage, and sit down with the city tomorrow if you're available in the next few days, and just make sure we understand the grading question that was brought up in the minutes.
Perfect. I believe that staff would be more than happy to schedule a time with you.
That's it.
To get that sorted out.
And I'm available for any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, sir. And at this point in time, is there any questions or concerns that need to be addressed, or is someone prepared to make a motion? Any and all are acceptable. My only question, I guess, is the parking for screening. You indicated 3 feet from an adjacent property. And I know this kind of sits close to that property line, but depending on how they redo that parking, it may not be that it's within that proximity to another residential property.
So the existing, I'm getting my pointer out.
If you could just clarify that. Because I'm assuming, and maybe I should also ask the applicant to confirm, is that where you're going to try to make up the additional parking? It's kind of off that extended, like that triangle area. I apologize, right off of
So
Maple
it's
Hill.
my understanding in talking with the person that's in charge of the maintenance facility, that there was approval to move the tank, and the tank is over to the eastern side there, and that's a fuel tank?
Got it, yep.
Yep.
And I can see it on the aerial.
Yeah, to move it up to that building over to the north of it.
Yep.
And the trash is over in that area too. So what that does is makes room for about 4 more spots right there. And then other than that, this was produced prior to getting the survey. And so it's just a matter of rotating the parking
Okay.
to match the survey, and then calling out new pavement, and then working with the survey and the civil engineer to get the drawings to agree with each other. That's it.
But the assumption is that it's going to stay in that same general area just south of the building.
Yeah.
Okay.
With the exception of adding 4, I think, 4
across.
or 5 across. Yeah.
Okay.
May I ask
Absolutely.
one question? Derek Spindle, I'm general manager at Rush Creek Golf Club. And my one question is, on the south here, where we're, the majority of that parking is, was that just saying that needed to be blacktopped and curbed? Is that
part of that?
That's
Is that,
correct.
yeah, okay.
Okay, so is that, I guess my question is, what determines, that needs to be in a, because it's not a retail setting, it's not a, there's no customers coming into this. This is just basically an employee parking lot, where we have it leveled and it's basically like a gravel parking lot. So I'm wondering what dictates that it has to be a paved and curbed location, because that would probably be almost as costly as putting on the building itself. And, and just in general, like, you go over to some of the other retail places here and there's gravel parking lots and for people that are coming to restaurants and whatnot. So I'm just wondering if that's something that is has to happen, or is that something that we can talk about and discuss in this situation?
It's a good question. I'll let staff answer, but I believe that, I'll let staff answer, because I believe it would require a variance if you were to try to deviate, because what's dictating it is the increase in the size of the building. And so then it's just being required to upgrade that parking lot standards to what is for that area.
That's correct, Madam
But
Chair.
sorry, just not to cut, but if we are increasing the building for storage, it's not increasing any size of our staff. It's not increasing any of the.
The way the code is written, it doesn't look at what the building is being increased for. That's just the trigger to bring parking lots into compliance, particularly in non-residential areas. So correct, it would be a variance. And at this point, the application did not include a variance component, so I would, that would be something that would have to come back. So, but as right now, to comply with code, that would have to be a condition. We could change the condition to meet this code requirement or apply for and the city approves the variance. That would be an alternative.
That would have to be how the language of the recommendation is changed too.
Just,
But we also keep in mind variances also mean the practical difficulty and financial is not what the primary basis for a variance grant being approved.
Related to that, would it possibly be acceptable, instead of going with a cast-in-place concrete curb, to have a rolled asphalt curb?
So I think at this point, we would need to have the engineers in the room, so I think it would be that meeting that you would request. Typically, we do a pre-application meeting, but I think we have informal meetings over the phone with the applicant and Dwight. So I think the best I can recommend is that we get all in the same room with the engineering and see what options there might be, but the code language is pretty clear, so any deviation from that would be a variance.
So with what there is in front of us tonight, it would, if the recommendation for approval without a change to the language, it would go to the council as a recommendation for approval that also includes an upgrade to that parking lot because of the change in business size, if that makes any sense to you. I don't know that we could just be like pending a meeting with, right, we just have to go with what is written before us in the resolution.
Yeah, you could change the recommendation to add in the language that I said, like and apply for a variance, or apply for a variance and have it be granted by the city. So that would be the way I would recommend changing the resolution language if that is desired.
Or do we just maintain the resolution as it is and then you guys have a meeting afterwards, and if it proceeds to council, it proceeds to council, otherwise it comes back? And that's the preferred way to do it.
Yeah, you wouldn't generally say, unless you want to get a variance and do something different.
Sure.
So you would approve it as it is. They're hearing that that's an option, that meeting with staff doesn't get them what they need.
Okay.
Otherwise, does the applicant table this application?
I think that is,
Either way, we would have to come back for the variance, so it's up,
right.
Yeah, so I would say it would have to be up to them, but they don't have to do it, no. So it would just be, we could go through the process and we could come back with the variance. And they can figure it out, we could figure it out from there. I don't know that I would recommend tabling it, but it's up to the applicant.
Okay.
The existing parking lot is asphalted, correct?
From aerial imagery, it appears that it is, but the applicant can speak to that.
Yeah, the driveway is all asphalt, and then people can just pull off, and that's typically is mostly probably gravel right now, just off where you would turn in to park. Everything from the fence on in and the new addition, that is all asphalt. And there's a big asphalt pad just south of this. It's just, basically, we're talking about these 5, 6 spots here, or 8 spots, maybe 10 spots, that you're pulling in on the asphalt, turning in, and it's pretty, it's like a gravel structure or some structure.
But the Maple Hill Road, which is where the turnoff is part of the development that have also been proposed along the east side of that road would trigger an upgrade to that road.
Not necessarily all the way up north here, it has to be a nexus to this development, but yes, if the Chapstick development moves forward, they do have to upgrade the road up to their entrance. So.
Yeah, from Maple, Maple Estates, from there on up, it is a gravel road. So now you would be driving on asphalt, you'd have to go on to gravel, and then if you're making, it would be made us have to asphalt where we park, but not where we drive.
I completely understand. Sort of what feels like it's also the way that the city gets some of the improved road conditions is through that increased development. I guess I don't know how else to say it. It's part of what triggers sort of the change from the gravel to updated standards for roads.
Okay, so can we clearly lay out what our, I think we all understand that all right.
No, what's your
I
question?
don't want to make any assumptions, but it sounds like there are, the applicant understands the opportunity to request a variance if they would like in order to attempt to go past this requirement. What we have in front of us is a approval, or a request for a recommendation with it requiring the pavement. And you're not recommending that
Correct.
we
It is
put
recommended
in-
that we either make a recommendation for approval or denial of the resolution that we have tonight.
Right, but what I was going to say was, you're not recommending that we make an adjustment to say that they could consider a variance.
Yeah, I will defer to Kendra. She's
Okay.
she's got her
Yeah,
20
it
years
really
knowledge.
shouldn't be in the resolution, but I think they've clearly heard that direction from
Okay.
the planning commission, and then it would be up to them to work with staff to meet the various standards of practical business.
I'd just like to say that it seems like more and more of these come up, and it's not an area that really needs paved and curb and gutter and all this stuff that we're in our zoning, we're saying it has to have it, and it seems to put a pretty onerous burden on a lot of businesses where it's not visible from the street, it's not an area where the public is even coming in, or some of our rural residential areas, it makes it less rural residential, it creates more runoff area. That's just my take on this. It seems unnecessary to some extent, and I don't know if when we update the comp plan, if we have any way to kind of correct some of this, because it seems like overkill in a lot of circumstances.
That engineering would agree with you. So, yeah, I think that particularly on the side, the part of the city that's within the MUSA, I think there would have to be a much larger discussion. But.
Yeah, I agree. I guess.
As it sits, unless anyone else has questions or concerns, I would make a motion to recommend approval of the Rush Creek Golf Course conditional use permit and site plan amendments.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And anyone opposed? Okay, and so then we'll allow you to connect with staff afterwards to schedule the meeting so that you guys can continue to discuss what will hopefully be something that allows you to move forward. And then we are going to move on. And then, Kendra, are you giving the last staff report? Okay, so if you, I don't know, if you want want to try to connect with Dwight during that time. But at this point in time, we're going to move on to the request for a variance for the St. John's Lutheran Church. This is City File 25-031, and we're going to start with a staff report from Kendra.
Well, we tested it earlier tonight and it worked.
Sometimes you have to duplicate your screen. Oh.
Okay.
Thanks for hanging in there.
Yeah. I saw, like, oh, I wish we would have been first.
I'm sorry.
Oh, is that?
We've learned a lot tonight.
Yeah, where's your joke?
Well,
guys?
we'll have to have a word joke.
I mean, Jay might have a joke, but I don't know that they're funny. I'm just kidding.
Press the screen, you gotta press it again. Okay, do you want
All
to
right.
email it to me?
Yep. I don't know.
No.
If
I don't know who they were referencing.
We were doing so well too.
We
Technology
were.
was
I mean,
just going
that's the
so
whole point of
smooth.
coming early to test it, right?
Yes.
Madam Chair, who are you referencing about the joke? Who's Jay?
Our city administrator?
Oh,
Not Commissioner
okay.
Zach.
Oh, he's
Different.
not.
Oh, different.
So he was
I
like,
got
are you
jokes.
referring to me?
I have jokes, and they're funny.
He turns to me and he's like, were they referring to me?
Didn't know I made jokes yet.
Sorry, no.
Now we're only gonna be waiting for the time when you let loose with your jokes.
Oh, that's
Commissioner
great.
Jackman.
Well, we probably don't need the PowerPoint,
Okay.
but I did send to Natalie and Dwight, so one of them can pull that up. But this is a variance request from St. John's Church, and it's actually a variance to modify a variance that was approved in 2006 to allow a second sign on the site. In 2006, the site was zoned residential, which allowed one 32-square-foot sign with a maximum height of 6 feet. And they built that on the north side of the site. I'm sure you're all familiar with the church. There's an existing larger sign near the church itself, and then this was built on the north side of the site. And the reason at the time for the second sign is that we have both the church and the church school, which are related but somewhat separate entities, and the church school had a desire to have more information about activities at the school, as is pretty standard practice. So the sign was approved subject to the size standards in the ordinance at the time for properties in this zoning district. Since that time, the city has modified its zoning ordinance. The applicant is in now to ask for a slightly larger sign, increasing from 32 to 40 square feet, in order to allow a dynamic display. And frankly, they initially started with a 32-square-foot sign, leaving it the same size as it is. But the nature of dynamic displays and what's available on the marketplace, you need to get there's only certain sizes available. And then to meet our percentage requirement, made the sign a little bit bigger. So the new sign is 40 square feet and 8 feet tall. And in the exact same space where the sign is today. And in reviewing the application, we did talk with the city attorney about just how to process it. And it really is in your packet outlined as an amendment to the 2006 sign variance.
Not required a secondary variance.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a new variance process, so we are here tonight reviewing a variance, but what the variance does is it amends that 2006 variance to allow this sign as a dynamic sign with this size, slightly larger size. And so the pictures are in your packet, so you hopefully reviewed those. And with that, I would say we do recommend approval of the variance modifying the 2006 variance, subject to the standards and conditions in the staff report.
Thank you, Kendra. At this point in time, I do believe do we have cards? Comment cards? And I know that we also did receive some virtually through email, and those were included and distributed to us through a packet.
Kind of got the property.
Oh, yay! Is there something you really want to see?
Okay, Madam Chair, yes, we do have 2 comment cards, so I can list off the first ones, and then when I say your name, feel free to come to the mic and introduce yourself, your name, and your address. So the first card I have is Gary Volberding.
Right, I would represent the applicant probably.
Oh, sure.
My
Okay.
name's on the variance application.
Okay, all right,
I'll
so.
speak to that one.
Sounds good. So then the other card I have is for Brenda, is it Kohler?
Brenna Kaler.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Brenna Kaler, and I have the privilege of serving on the Board of Education for St. John's Lutheran School. Well, I don't live in the city. I live up in Rogers. I did attend and graduate from St. John's. So Corcoran is close to my heart, both the school and the city. We're requesting that you grant our variance to be able to replace our sign so we can have a larger electronic dynamic sign. We already have one in there. The 2 signs have not caused issues with traffic or the neighbors. But most importantly, we want to be able to share more information effectively with our families and the neighborhood, school events, student achievements, updates, community activities. So our goal is to keep the school closely connected with the community of Corcoran. We've been here for over 160 years and enjoyed a wonderful relationship. So thank you for considering our request and supporting the next generation of St. John students.
Thank you, Brenda. And at this point in time, then, that is the only comment card that we had, so I will make a motion to close the public hearing. And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And so then, sir, if you would like to come and address as the applicant, we welcome you to the podium.
Hi, my name's Gary Wolberding. Longtime teacher, principal at St. John's. I was involved with the first variance back in 2006. My address, I'm kind of homeless right now, sold the house in Crystal, building a home up north, living with my daughter currently in Dayton. So I suppose my residence would be, on my driver's license is 9334 Loon Lane, Pequot Lakes. So I'm retired now, so I have the time to be able to do things like this and address you. So thank you for the opportunity. I think it's pretty simple and pretty straightforward. The sign that we did almost 19 years ago has seen its day and its purpose and has been useful, but it's becoming more and more difficult to use because of some of the things that I think I pointed out in the request here for us. In the wintertime, it's practically impossible to get out there and get it changed. It freezes closed. It's a locking system, and so you have to unlock the locks to open it, to change letters on it, and so that's a difficult thing, a changeable sign like that. And then the way it sits, you only know this after you have the experience, but it's kind of a lower in nature than the roadway. The grade of the road is higher than the land right there. And so with it only having a 2-foot pedestal and 4-foot sign, in the wintertime, it's a difficult thing to see. The lighting that's on there that was in the code at the time gets dimmer and dimmer the colder it gets outside. So it's hardly visible at night even in the cold temperatures of our winters. So again, a lot of needs and purposes for replacing that sign. And we thought, I like the render, I think it's going to fit in and look a lot better than the current one, how we would match up the brickwork and stuff. But this time of year, we'd like to try and get the footings in, of course, before frost hits, and then the sign would be built, and then the brick would come back and be put around it in the spring. That would be the plan. Okay, so I'm here and available if you have any questions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. At this point in time, we can ask questions if anyone has them, or make comments.
How large is the sign for that's out here?
The city sign?
Yeah.
I believe it's a comparable size. That was one of the discussion points that triggered the variance request. That's because they were, I think it was, I can't remember who was emailing me. But they were emailing me and they're like, want what the city has, can we have that? And so that kind of triggered that. So I believe it's a comparable size to what the city monument sign is.
I don't know a lot about these signs. Did see a mention of dimmable. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so, sign company, will match whatever the, ordinances are of the city as far as for brightness, and then it does, you know, have that in there as far as daylight versus nighttime, how bright it can be. What kind of motion you can have or not have on it, all those things, and the way these signs are made today, they can program that all right into the system, so we can't even screw it up. And then there is some default things, if something does go wrong with the sign, it will shut down rather than being a distraction for drivers going by. So it's kind of a default system they put into these signs these days.
Great, thank you. I think this is really nice, right? I mean, that's actually the reason that I became aware of the City Planning Commission and the number of things the city is because that sign isn't stagnant and we're able to get information, which is important to engage the community. So that's all I have.
I'll make them, oh.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. I presume that the neighbors have been notified of the sign and nobody bothered to show up with it to address it. Does the city have any standards regarding the brightness of the sign?
We do, Commissioner, that is in the staff report, and so the ordinance standards relate to two things. There is a maximum brightness, which is measured in nits for these types of signs, and dynamic display has to have an automatic dimmer light, so the maximum signs using LED cannot exceed 500 nits between sunset and sunrise, and 5,000 between sunrise and sunset daytime. And then they have to be equipped with a mechanism that automatically adjusts the brightness to the ambient lighting conditions to ensure that the signage intensity isn't more than 0.3 foot candle above ambient light levels. And then really just some general language about it can't be brighter than necessary. And then we do, as noted, limit motion so that it's not distracting.
I just want to say it was a really nice application, and you were both just really well prepared and spoke quite well on the subject. So I just want to make that comment. And then I believe Commissioner Wynn was about to.
I'll make a motion for approval.
I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. And anyone opposed? Okay. So then that will go to council. Thanks for sticking with us for tonight. Appreciate that. And then what's up next for us is the reports and information. So we have a council update. This is the opportunity when, well, it's kind of been undefined, and not that I want to like make it defined, but I was wondering if we could specifically like indicate if you have specific questions for Councilman Camp tonight, that would be helpful. But also, I was wondering if there's something that you would desire to hear about most during this section of the evening. For instance, I myself don't necessarily need to hear the events that are taking place in the city, just because I feel like that's information that's quite available online, and so I would rather hear specific things just related to like maybe concept plans that the council has heard at previous meetings, things that we wouldn't necessarily be aware of. But that is general, so I want to make sure that we have the opportunity to do two things tonight. Ask specific questions, but then also if there is something that you would generally like to see during this period of time, I think it would be helpful to say what that might be.
No specific questions, but I'm interested in the second part of the discussion.
I was just hoping, sorry, Councilman Camp, I was hoping to maybe just get a little bit of input from these folks on if there was anything specific that we would make sure we would want to know about, like from your council update. And I think one of the things, like, we don't know about the concept plans, they, you know, because a lot of times you'll get applicants that just come and say, hey, what is the council think? I think that would be something that I would love, if that is coming across the council, like if you would, in the update to us, just say, hey, we heard about this, or we listened to a proposal for this. You don't need to tell us feelings or anything about it, but just an awareness. I think I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, you guys, it was one of those things that I always wanted, when I first started, I always wanted to, is this something that the council, not necessarily support, would listen to, okay? So many people were coming to us, spending an initial pile of money up front, and there was probably little to no support from the council and mayor before. Does that make sense? Am I going down the right road?
Oh, I understand, I
Yeah.
guess I should say. I understand the need for it. I'm just wondering if when you guys have one, like in the month, right, then the next month when you come here, you just kind of let us know.
Understood.
Yeah,
Understood.
I think.
The thing though that is there is council meeting minutes are published Friday before the Thursday meeting. Any concept plan is on the agenda. Nobody just comes blindly to the microphone and says things. But if it's a concept, I will absolutely write it down and come back, hey, we had this concept plan. If you didn't get a chance to read the minutes and such, this is what we're talking about. The cannabis growing deal was almost 2 years now, Natalie, Dwight? Was that 2 years or was that a year ago?
No, they came to an open forum. I can't remember when it was. It was after, because there was 2 phases of the legalization on the state level. It was first lower potency. I think it came after the second phase where we were talking about higher potency, because that was when what they're talking about became legal, pending licensing set up and everything. So I think it was probably in the last year or so that they came to an open forum. So it wasn't quite a concept, but they did want to just let the council know that, you know, they were coming, and they've been wanting to try to be transparent.
It's neat how transparent they've been. It's really nice. But something like that you're saying is, hey, last month we had a cannabis grow house conversation with a possible applicant. That's what you're wanting.
Yeah, I think just because it does twofold, it lets us know, like, sort of what's being brought before council for consideration. So I feel like it gives us a touch point with what is the community at large bringing before you guys. But then also it's helpful for us, like, I guess my desire is to just always sort of understand the priorities, feedback, and interpretation of the council, right? So I think that's just helpful.
And we kind of lost that by not having representatives both ways.
Right, yeah.
I'm the only one that comes to the planning commission. We don't have anybody coming to Parks and Trails now, and there was a disconnect. So just telling everybody, you're all welcome to come to council meetings and share. We can get away from that now since everything is online and you're not getting a council packet and stuff like that. I know you all are volunteers and stuff. I spend more time than most probably reading every page in the council meeting and all of your pages and all of Parks and Trails. I'm trying to stay engaged in those kind of things, and then I've even had the Parks and Trails now wanting me to come to their meetings so they can ask questions like this. Well, I don't mind dedicating Thursdays to city life. It would be nice if it was just Thursdays and not every day of the week with all of the people. But no, I'm more than happy to talk about those kind of things. And if you hear something, by all means ask me. If there's something out there that is being talked about and stuff that I can't say, I'm not able to talk about that, but I'm a pretty open person, and I'm sure sometimes staff would like me to shut the heck up sometimes. So
Have you been attending the Parks and Trails meetings?
I've been listening. I didn't realize that the council member initially is no longer doing it. Okay? While we're here right now, I'm probably certain that the mayor listens to you guys a lot. I'm not sure about the other people. Okay? guys did a great job on something that could be very, very crazy, but you did a great job tonight, helping everybody understand, and none of us are probably fans of it, and, but we need to, our state representatives, everybody has told us to govern it and do those things, so I do know that council and the mayor want to do it as hard and as tight as we can govern, so.
And it sounds like we do have some control over how many retail cannabis.
Yep, we were able to do that, and if you wanted to have that conversation, Natalie, isn't there a point up to 10,000? Is there something related to population, a number of licenses, stuff like that?
I think so.
I've been through so
Yeah.
many
I think
things.
we can limit, I forget exactly what it was, but we've limited to the extent possible that we can, and there might be some additional triggers that happen when we hit a certain population. I can look into it again.
My biggest thing on tonight is I don't think they have a license yet from the state.
Well, they can't have the
Because
license yet until we sign off.
It has to come here first before they can get fully licensed.
Yeah.
It's a
So
part of the application.
They have submitted the application.
Thank you.
Yeah, to the state. As far
It
as
still
they have.
bothers me, why am I talking about it when it's not even, the license hasn't been granted, but if that's a caveat, I understand, but I won't ask that
They
question
have
that
submitted
night.
several documents, they shared everything that they've submitted to the state so far.
Understood.
So they're in the point where
They
now we have
gotta
to
get
sign
our
off.
approval
Yeah.
for them to do a grow house, and then the state may or may not even give them the license.
Correct, if they don't meet the licensing, then they wouldn't.
The director of the Office
Just
of
seems
Cannabis
backwards.
Management was just appointed in August in the state of Minnesota. So
Just seems,
it's just,
There's gonna be some trial and error, is the best
Yeah.
I can say about it.
you guys did great tonight.
I did want to just quickly touch on your point. There is potentially a sketch plan going October 23rd for a existing business expansion. So just to keep that in mind if anyone wants to listen.
Oh, what expansion?
Redevelopment, sorry. So it's a redevelopment for an existing business.
Outstanding, cool.
Yep. And then the other thing that sometimes council sees that you don't would be final plats or like a PUD amendment, final PUD amendment. So there were a couple of those somewhat recently in the last few months. Like Amira had, which would be the Cook Lake Highlands, the 100-unit apartment building for senior living. So that one they came back with an amendment for expanding the impervious surface. So it wasn't too big of a concern, and it got approved on consent. I'm trying to think of anything else that council, anything that you haven't, but those are the ones that come to mind. Oh, and then Ravinia PUD amendment for 9th edition that is planning to go October 9th. So that's simply they're asking to trade out one PUD benefit for another, as proposing a new one. And actually, it's probably going to go back to parks and trails because it's related to the Wildflower Park.
thank you, appreciate it. Does anyone else have any additional questions?
I did have a question about the planning project update, the MJ Creekside interim use permit, the winery that wanted to open a tasting room. And it looks like they tabled the item from September 11th and then requested October 23rd. Did they come to the staff with some concerns that they wanted to, I know they had concerns about the existing pole building not meeting the setbacks and the road going to the new building they were gonna create for the tasting room and having to take down trees. Were those difficulties some of the things that they could change or try to work around, or?
We did have a meeting with staff, and I would say it was very productive. They are ready to move forward. Do you remember all what they are changing? I think they're coming back for a variance for the building.
To try to not have to move the building.
Yeah, but I don't know, where did we land on the driveway, do you remember?
I believe they were gonna work on revising the driveway design, so they can keep 2 trees, but, I haven't seen that update yet.
Have any of you guys stopped by and said hi?
The winery?
Yeah,
No, I don't know if they're open to the public, are they?
they are, but stop in as a neighbor, tell them Councilman learn and
I think
listen.
people would like to see something like that in Corcoran. I think a lot of people like breweries and tastings.
They're speaking highly of our staff. They're trying to get things right and stuff. A variance for a building that was granted by the city, but put in the floodplain and stuff, that's the deal. But they're working really hard to get things, they'd like to break ground soon and get it all done, so.
I mean, like they said, I'd much rather see something like that than another outdoor storage. I mean, people want to do out here for there's a landfill, the music comes in and stick a storage unit on their outdoor storage.
There's no longer an allowable use in Corcoran.
I think
We
they
don't
can
do it anymore.
Outdoor storage though, can't they?
So a business that isn't storage could have an exterior storage component. Yeah, but you can't just do outdoor storage.
We gonna close that up pretty quick.
I'm kind of
A
excited
year
to
ago.
see some nice, agricultural related businesses come into our rural ag. I mean, we want to stay rural agriculture, so. See those businesses.
If there's no other comments, I just want to point out, thank you so much for putting the liaison calendar in there as we talk about not wanting to miss, like, some of the in-syncness that the commission and the council once had. But I just want to note that the 2 dates that have asterisks next to them are Mondays. So, because of holidays, so I just wanted to note that. And on that note, then we will adjourn tonight's meeting. Oh, you guys, this is the second time I've done that. The point is, like, you can tell I just
One
reached
more
a certain
time,
point and I'm like,
we're
let's
gonna have
finish.
to elect
All right,
a new chair.
we will, I will make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting. And who will second? All right, and all those in favor say a rambunctious aye. Aye.